What do you do when your childhood dream shatters, your definition of success leaves you empty, and your path forward is anything but straight? My guest, Pigalle Tavakoli, knows. From aspiring actress to fashion designer, from burning out at the top of her own label to pioneering the field of experience design, Pigalle's journey is a masterclass in reinvention. Today on Censorship, she shares how she turns setbacks into building blocks, literally, with her new book, The Experience Design Building Blocks. We talk about the alchemy of transforming audiences into heroes, the power of purpose over prestige, and why the most meaningful success is the one you define for yourself. If this resonates, follow, like, comment, and share this episode with someone who needs to hear it. Hi, Pigalle. Welcome. Thank you for coming here today and meeting with me.
Thank you. I should even say bonjour.
Bonjour.
Since we're in Paris.
Welcome.
And I've come dressed on theme.
Absolutely. The color, everything. Wonderful. To get us started, would you introduce yourself to our listeners who don't know you?
Yes, thank you. So my name is Pigalle Tavakoli, and I'm the founder and director of the School of Experience Design, and I'm also an educator, a team trainer, and generally an all-round passionate person about experience design.
And you wrote a book on the subject.
Yes, I've just literally hot off the press finished my book, finally, which was over 10 years in the making.
Nice.
And it's the consolidation of my practice, the methods, the process that I've developed and refined and tested and proved. And now I've put it all in one place, so that others can also access it as well. So not just the people in the teaching or the training or the keynotes that I give, but really I'm now ready to release it out to the rest of the world.
So we'll come back to the book, we'll come back to your current activity, but I would love to go through the journey that took you there, because you didn't wake up one morning and decided to write a book on that subject. It took a while. So I know you started off thinking of theater. Tell us a little bit about that very first dream.
Yeah, so if we go back through the mists of time, way back. So originally when I was young, ever since I was young, I had a really clear dream and ambition. And ever since I was young, I knew I wanted to be an actress, and I was fully committed to following that path, and that was my future goal, and that was what my life was going to be. However, my parents had other ideas. My father was quite strict and academic, so I wasn't allowed to take any of the arts-based subjects at school, so I had to take all the academic subjects, maths, sciences, of which I really wasn't that good at. And it was only once I had got my basic qualifications that I was then allowed to make some of my own choices. So I took theatre studies for A-level, and I joined theatre groups, and I ended up working on West End shows backstage in wardrobe and production. And I spent several years studying, working, and in these groups. And unfortunately, I found out I couldn't act. It was a complete disaster. I was surrounded by incredibly talented young people, and it was just clear as day that this wasn't going to be my path. So my dreams were completely shattered, and I really didn't know what I was going to do, since my whole life had been building up to this moment. So then I thought about, well, what are my other passions? And this may not come as a big surprise, but my other passion was dressing up and clothes. So I thought, okay, if I can't be an actress on stage, maybe then I can become a fashion designer and nurture my other passion, which is clothing and style. So unfortunately, I had loads of qualifications. I'd even turned down a scholarship at Oxford University, which my father never forgave me for, because I wanted to pursue more of an arts-based subject. And so I couldn't actually go to take a fashion degree, even though I turned down a scholarship at Oxford for a degree, because I didn't have any art subjects. So I had to take a further 2 years, 1 year studying art in evening classes while I was working during the day in the theatre. At night I was doing art classes to create a portfolio. And then through that year, I then did a year art foundation. And then finally I was accepted onto a fashion degree. And so then I took the fashion degree, and eventually I was 10 years in the fashion industry. And then through the fashion industry, eventually I ended up becoming an event producer. And as an event producer, I actually was a creative producer, and my specialism became facilitating collaborations between artists and scientists, and taking complex scientific subjects and research and turning it into entertaining, informative experiences for non-specialist science public. So sometimes we call that edutainment, so it's education and entertainment combined. And I did it in non-science environments, so muddy fields at music festivals, take over abandoned buildings, trendy bars in Shoreditch. And all in, I was a producer for 15 years working with scientists and artists.
How do you go? So, so theater, you mentioned as you were studying theater originally, you worked in wardrobe, and so I can see the bridge or sort of a red thread with fashion. You built your own label, right? And
yeah, so in those 10 years working in fashion, half of that, for 5 years, I actually set up my own fashion label. And was selling to boutiques worldwide. So I learned how to build a brand. I did all my PR and marketing, dressed celebrities. It was featured in films. So I learned how to run a global business and to run the comms side of it, and found I had a bit of a knack for that. And so what happened with my business was I was a small business, and I was quite young when I ran it, and I had full-time staff, all the responsibilities, ran the business solo, and basically I burnt out by the end. I worked every day, every night, every weekend, every holiday, and the responsibilities just were very high at such a young age. And so I decided that when I had peaked as a small business, I had a business advisor, and he said, okay, you're at the stage now where you need to become a medium-sized business. You need to get investors, you need to open physical bricks and mortar stores around the world. And when I heard all that, I just realised I can't, I'm done now. So I decided to close the business. The other reason was, apart from being burnt out, it was also another situation where my dreams were shattered, because I'd had a classical notion of what success means. And so I thought, if my face, if I have interviews in magazines and celebrities wear my outfits and I do fashion shows around the world and financially, then I'll be successful. And in the end, I ended up finding that cliche is really true, that it's lonely at the top. And I was doing these incredible fashion shows around the world, but then I'd be packing everything into suitcases and coming back home on my own. And in the end I thought, well, if this is success, but I don't have time or capacity for a partnership, I'm not around for any of my friends, I'm just working night and day. Well, if this is success and I'm just surrounded by dresses, this isn't it. This isn't what it should feel like, and this isn't what it should look like. So I decided to close the business on my own terms, so it was at its peak, and then allow myself to discover what could success really mean. And I made the decision from then on not to be defined by my work, and to have work be something that supports a life that I want to live, that's more nurturing and more about connections and relationships with people. So I had a huge mental shift, and then it took many years of a journey to get to where I am now.
So you had a traditional view of what success was like, sales, visibility, brand, and when you reached that, you checked all the boxes. When you reached that, you found out it's not fulfilling. You didn't actually choose that. You went for something that had been defined for you.
Yes. I mean, I've always been a very driven person with very clear vision of what I want to do. Hence, thinking I'd be an actress and spending, till I was 18, my whole life orientated to it. So I get if I have a vision, I will go for it. And so then I had that notion of what I thought success would mean, and I thought that's what would bring value to me in my life. And that's how, obviously, as I'm older, I understand it was a sense of self-worth that I also equated with it, which I didn't realise at the time. And so it was actually a massive challenge and really good for my personal development when I decided not to be defined by my label. My label was my name, Pigalle, and in my own field I was well known, so people would come up to me and say, oh, you're Pigalle, the designer. And so it was quite brave to step away from that and put myself in environments where people didn't know my past, so that I wouldn't be defined by that. And it forced me to develop myself. And actually, it was really good for me personally as a human being to end up learning that what's important in life is who I am as a person and how I relate and connect to people. And that's what's going to make life worthwhile and nurturing to live in. And all the physical, external stuff that I do, I made that decision. I want it to be something that's going to help me live a fulfilling life. Not that I live for work, but that work helps me have the life that I want to live.
That's fascinating. The fact that your label, your brand, was your name, that became your identity. And then when you realized this version of success is not fulfilling, and by the way, I'm burnt out, you had to find a new sense of identity, develop a new you, or a new way to find value and worth.
And I really did have to find out who I am, because I defined myself by seeking success. And if my name, let's just say, was in lights, in my own small way, in the field I was in, it was. And in some ways I feel lucky that I did get that definition of success when I was young, because a lot of people dream of that version of success and they never dare, or their circumstances are such that they can never pursue it or try and reach it. So I feel glad that I actually did, in my own small way, I reached that particular type of success when I was young, to realise it's not what we think it is. And so I was young enough to have time on my side to go and explore further and to find out that actually I need to develop who I am. I need to find out, who am I? I'm not the clothes, I'm not the this and the that and the other. And at my core, who am I really? So I feel blessed that I had that opportunity to reach it early and walk away from it early and enlarge my life since then. So I feel very lucky I was able to do that.
And what was the transition? What was the event or the train of thought maybe that led you into designing experiences? Is there a direct link between the fashion industry and right?
No direct links.
No direct link, but maybe about the storytelling. I know you mentioned in your book that you worked with Alexander McQueen. Maybe there's something, I told myself there's something around storytelling, and is that a link, or
no.
you feel like it was really a 180?
Yeah, it was very windy, twisty.
Okay.
People ask me often, how did I get to be, as we define it, an experienced designer? And I say there is no one route. There is no one straight route, and there is no one way, and everybody comes at it through their own journey. So when I closed my business, because I had a knack for marketing and PR, I stepped into being head of marketing and PR for other fashion designers, and quickly realised I really don't want a career in PR. Not a full-time career. I'm glad that I can do it and I'm capable of it, but it's not really the rest of my life. So I was trying to figure out what else I could do. And I happened to be doing some communications consultancy for the V&A Theatre Museum. And they approached me and said, we have an event series we want to put on to attract a young, fashion-forward audience to connect with the collections and the archives that we've got, but no, they don't come to this particular museum, and we're thinking to have a series of events to help attract them, but we need someone to create the content, the topic, the marketing, and we'd like you to pitch. And I hadn't ever thought of doing events, and the minute they asked me, I was like, oh my God, that's really obvious, because events brings together my theatre production experience, in fashion, the whole visual, sensory, whole environment design. And I was like, events could really bring together the strands of my past, my expertise, my skills. And so I pitched and I won it. And so what I did, so this was in 2005, so just to give a sense of how long ago this was. And back then, museums were never open late to the public. They always shut at 5 or 6 o'clock. So museum lates didn't yet exist. And so what I proposed was to take over the whole museum at night, on a Friday night, because if we wanted to attract this young fashion-forward audience, it needed to be that kind of a time for them. And then the topic that I ended up formulating the events on was, at the time, in the underground club scene of London, burlesque was starting to emerge, and it was a very creative, performance-based, theatre-based practice. And so I had found out the archives of the Theatre Museum had a lot in the history of burlesque in England. So I sort of tied what was all these cool, hip, young, fashion-forward people were doing in the burlesque clubs and sort of brought that to life in the museum. And I created a whole story world, and it basically was a theatrical, immersive experience that the public came to, and then they could free-form wander for hours throughout the building as the story unfolds. And I had musicians and performers and actors, and during that experience, halfway through, there was this incredible magical, and I compare it to alchemy, this alchemical moment that took place, where I, as the producer, up to then, I had been managing everything, making sure everybody goes and does the things I want them to do in the sequence that I want them to do. But there was this moment in the middle where the tables turned and everything flipped, and the audience spontaneously in front of my eyes came alive, and they suddenly became the performers. They jumped on stage. Someone jumped and started playing the piano. Someone else jumped up and started singing. And then people started dancing, and everything turned around, where the audience became the stars of the story, the heroes and heroines of the story, and the performers became the side characters. And that moment that I witnessed set off a light bulb in my head. And I thought, this is what I want to do. This, whatever this is, because I didn't have the words to describe it. Words like experiential didn't exist yet. But I thought, you know, as a fashion designer, I used to design clothes to physically empower women and to affect and transform them. I could create whole environments that could transform people, not just women, and create this incredible alchemical reaction that's happening. And when the event finished, people came up to me and they're like begging me, please, we want more of this. We're never going to forget this. This has been the most incredible night of our lives. Please do more. And so I thought, okay, this is what I want to do, but I don't know what it's called. And so I thought, you know, from the reaction and what people have told me, this is going to be the next big thing. This is what the public are hungry for. So I thought, where can I go? Where can I take this where people will want to do it? And I thought, okay, I'll contact all the top creative and advertising agencies in London. And I managed to get interviews with all of them and all the top creative directors. And I said, this is what I've done. This is my background, theatre, fashion. I've just done this event. It's like really powerful effect that it has on people. People are begging for it. I think this is the next big thing. I can be your person to help you do this. And literally everyone said to me, that sounds really interesting, but not relevant to us. And I couldn't get a job anywhere. So the reason my journey has been long and twisty and windy is a colleague who knew I was trying to find work and not managing to find any work. She worked for the Science Museum in London, and they had a project where they wanted to find ways to bring artists and scientists together to use art as the bridge to get a young, fashion-forward, non-specialist audience to come in, so that art would be the bridge to get them in and become interested in science. So she said, there's this project, they're interviewing, you should apply. So I did, and I got the project, and then that project led to another and another. I ended up a year at the Science Museum, and then I went on and I became a multidisciplinary specialist, and all the experiences, immersions, installations, pop-ups, every kind of format you can have for 15 years. I ended up doing it for science organisations, and I became the go-to specialist to attract young adults who are not really back in school anymore and they think science is just at the museum. And because I would take it to non-science environments, arts, culture spaces where they are, fashion environments, I became the specialist that could create that bridge between scientists and their research and complex content and turn it into something meaningful, create connections, experiences. And so that really got me on that path. And the second part of that puzzle of my path to experience design was, at the time I called myself a creative producer. That was, we didn't have the language for it yet. And so that was since 2005, and I've produced up to 2020. So in 2012, the pivotal moment came for me when a colleague contacted me and said, "Oh, I'm teaching this course, and I'd like to develop it further, and I think you could join me, and I think you could be, this could really work, and this could be something that opens up a path for you." And the course was called Experience Design, and we're still running it at Central St Martin's in London. And I had never taught, I had never thought of teaching. I was extremely busy as a producer, as we know how busy that is. But I love a challenge, I love learning, and I love trying new things. And I trusted her instinct, and I went, yeah, okay, I'll give it a go. And so what was amazing was, by teaching experience design, I found out I was doing something that has a name. And that name is a field. And it's thanks to Joe Pine and Jim Gilmore, who termed the experience economy. This is an actual economic movement that's only going to get bigger and bigger. And the practice of teaching has been fantastic, because I've been teaching ever since. And so it forced me to think about what I was doing in practice, literally in the muddy fields.
It made you theorize what you had been doing for years.
Yes.
I love that, and I love how not linear your path has been.
Not at all.
But how somehow it all converges. Meaning, at the very top, you said your dad made you take the science courses, and so you had a basic science literacy that I'm guessing also helped when you were, or helps connect the dots in between all of those aspects of your path, and it just comes together when I'm listening to you.
Yeah, well, experience design ended up being the thing that drew the threads together.
Right.
But in a sense, without me knowing, that's how it was going to come together. So, and what was so brilliant, exactly to your point that you raised, it meant that I had to think about what I was doing instinctively in the practice of producing. And teaching meant I had to really think about, what am I doing? And why is it having this physical, emotional, even spiritual transformation and effect on the public that I'm witnessing in front of me? And how do I turn that into a simple, clear method that anyone from any design discipline and any language, because most of my students are from all different countries, that they can simply and clearly take it, apply it, use it, and it can create positive impact for their projects and practices all over the world from any design discipline. So I've had more than 12 years of really testing, refining and proving the effectiveness of all the methods, because since 2012 all those students have gone on into their careers all over the world. And the wonderful thing of time is I keep in touch with them, And I've seen them bring experience design to their countries, their regions, and they're now all in senior roles, or they run their own companies. So they're all now the leaders of transformation. So I feel it's been wonderful, this whole trajectory, because I've sort of been riding time for the rest of the world to catch up, and now it's starting to catch up. So I've had to be extremely patient since 2005 when I said to people it's the next big thing. It's taken a while, but it's happening now, and it's really building. And the wonderful thing is that these various colleagues that have affected my path, there's also James Wallman, who in, I think it was around 2020, he started the World Experience Organisation as a global membership group of people equally passionate about experience design. And I joined it since 2021, and I'm now a member of the council for it. And that has also had an incredible effect in my life, because I'm no longer the lone champion waving the flag on my own. Since 2021, I've joined a global group of equally passionate people, and the World Experience Organisation is only growing and growing and going from strength to strength.
Gives you a sense of community.
Absolutely,
Yes.
and it's been so wonderful to meet like-minded people, and that we're all in it together, and we're all there. We all care for more meaningful experiences, and with experiences that can be events, it can be products, it can be services. It's the experience of those forms and functions, how to elevate that further, so it creates meaningful connections, it sparks emotions, it forms memories and leads to impact. So it's going beyond the design of form and function to also designing all this other aspect. And now it's not just me, there's lots of us out there that believe in this, and there's lots of people now globally becoming interested to orientate in this direction as well.
So you were doing this intuitively, instinctively. You learned empirically by doing. And then you started teaching, which means you had to put pen to paper and organize your thoughts around it and create a method that you could share and transmit. Is that what brought you to writing the book then?
Yes. So my colleague who had invited me to teach, I last week told her the book's finally coming out, and she dug through her emails and sent me an email from 2013. So the poor thing, I think she's glad I finished writing it, because I don't have to tell her I want to write it. So since 2013, in that email, I talked about wanting to write a book. And it's so prescient, that email, because I read it, I'd forgotten about this email. And in the email I say, I want to write a book about experience design because I think it's going to become really important. Nobody knows what it means. Everybody thinks it's UX. So I want to help clear up the definition of it. And at the time, I was applying for research funding and I wanted to travel to places like Sweden, Japan, San Francisco. And I wanted to do research on story and narrative, play, co-creation and digital technology, because I felt those 4 elements were going to play a big part in the development of experience design in the future. I didn't get that scholarship because they said that they didn't think it was a topic that was going to have enough impact in the world. So I'm someone that's used to getting setbacks and challenges to what I instinctively feel will become important. And I always like to find opportunity and challenge. And when I get a block, I prefer to go sideways and find a way around it. I know that that path there is going to be important, and if others haven't caught up with me, I feel like, well, I just need to find another way to get there, and at some point they will catch up with me. So I'm very glad to be here with you today, because I feel like finally the time has come, people are catching up, and the future is bright, and there's lots more people like me to be doing it with, so it's become even more enjoyable now as well.
It's more fun.
Absolutely, loads more fun, and the people are lovely, because we're all driven by a similar wish for things to be more meaningful and to lead to longer lasting relevant impact. So it tends to draw a certain sort of person that has that kind of care. So I've ended up meeting and making friends with incredible people all over the world, and it just keeps expanding. So it's so much more fun now than way back then.
So you brought a copy of your book.
Yes.
We can see it right there. The Experience Design Building Blocks. Tell us a little bit about it, how you went about it, and what do you hope people who read it will change in what they're doing?
So the book has been a decade-long journey to want to write it, and originally I wanted to write it in long form because I have so much to say, as you can tell. And then really 2020 with COVID, having the lockdown, again, seeing opportunity in the challenge, I thought, okay, what do I have? I have lots of time indoors. This is it. I haven't had this time to sit down and try and write my book. So since 2020, I actually sat down and started writing. And I realised the long form version was going to take me another 10 years. And I thought, oh my God, I can't take another 10 years for this. So I really thought about it carefully. And I thought, well, who do I want this for? And how do I want them to use this book? I'm not writing this book just for myself. Like being a teacher or a team trainer for brands and organisations, or being a producer, I want it to be something that people can use. And I thought, well, people are busy. They don't necessarily have time to read a long, complicated, dense, long-form book about all my thoughts and theories about experience design. That's not going to be very helpful to anyone else. And I thought, actually, I want to write something short, concise, compact, small, that they can carry around. Actually, I don't want them to put it on their bookshelves. I want them to be able to chuck it in their bag. I want them to be able to have it on their desk at work, in their drawer, that they can put some sticky notes, they can underline bits, they can come back to it time and again with different challenges, go, oh yeah, that page, that method, oh, it's going to help me in this situation. And I thought, okay, and if I make it short, it'll also be quicker to write. Big mistake. It's what's taken me 5 years and it's been a really good discipline for me. I've had to write and rewrite and rewrite and rewrite and edit down and edit down and edit down so that every word and sentence counts. And so, because the way that I work with a graphic designer, so since 2020 we've been developing the infographics, designing the layout of the book, and the last 2 years we really refined. The last 2 years has really been the process of absolute refining it right down. And what I really wanted was each page is half text, half infographics. So I gave myself the rule that I've only got a set number of words within these half, and it's taken 2 years to really write these half pages so that every sentence counts. And so what I like to say is I've power packed the sentences, and each sentence is actually a portal to further depths. And that's up to the reader. Some of those portals they're not interested in, and that's totally fine. Other people will find some of those sentences and say, oh, that aspect, I want to find out more, and they can go off and do further research or contact me. And so I wanted to give a universe, but give the outside of that universe so people can explore it in their own time. The way I've written the chapters as well is I've written it not in a linear way. I've written each page standalone, so people can dip in and out. They don't have to sit and read it in sequence. I've made it very modular. So the 8 building blocks are the 8 key methods, and they're in the heart of the book. And before that, there's stuff to do with preparation and context building. And afterwards, I've also done a whole section on business and business models. And all of this is all great and brilliant, but then how do you apply it to business organisations and business structure and business strategy? So again, in a very simple way, I've created a whole set of how this could be applied. And so I really wanted it to work for people. So people can either sit down on a lovely comfy chair with some coffee and read it page to page, beginning to end, or they might say, you know what, I'm a busy mum, I'm a busy father, I'm running a business, I'm a business leader, I don't have time to do that. but they can carry it around and then they can turn to the pages as and when it suits them. And so I hope that that modular method will also encourage them with the 8 building blocks. They're presented in sequence, but I also say in the book, take them, make them yours. You don't have to do them one by one in the way that I've presented them. Maybe in a certain project or situation, block 2 and 3 will be very useful, or maybe block 5, or maybe you don't agree with block 7. Great, shape it, make it your own, because at the end of the book, I hand it all over to the reader and I say, these are yours now. I've made it, I brought it to this stage. Go and make it your own. Be your own agent of transformation and come and tell me the process you've developed. Let me know the progress you make, how you've shaped it. So this is the moment of all these years where now I'm ready to give it to everyone else.
So it's 8 building blocks, practical guide for
Yes.
people to use to make their own. It's a tool of empowerment, really. You're giving them the means to take things to the next level.
Yes, I like to say that I help to educate people, but I'm only educating them so that they are equipped and empowered to go off and do it themselves. I'm not a traditional educator. I'm here more in the role of facilitator and supporter, because I also believe everyone is already an amazing experienced designer. I'm just helping them with their intuitive ways of working to find that there are words to describe what they're doing, and there are some methods. And once they know what they're doing, they can be much more intentional and focused with it. And some of the methods will allow them to take what they do even further.
Because if you have the words, you can think it through.
Yes. And then you realize, oh, there's a word, there's a method, oh, and there's another method, and I didn't realize what I do, I can take it to this next level. So I'm just hoping to help open it up for others to go and do what they do even better.
It sounds fascinating. Where can people find the book or get in touch with you?
So they can find the book on their regional Amazons.
Okay.
So it's not available in physical stores yet, but at the moment it's mainly available through Amazon. And I really recommend people to get the paperback physical form, because we've worked really hard to make it a reading experience. If I'm talking about designing experiences, then the book itself should be some form of an experience. So and also to see the infographics really helps understand everything, makes it a lot clearer. So yes, people can purchase it through that, order it through that. And then if people want to reach out, talk to me, come and help their teams how to actually activate these building blocks, they can just reach me through my school, the School of Experience Design, and they can, or on LinkedIn, I'm very active on LinkedIn under my own name. They can come and reach out, and I'm very happy to have exploratory conversations how I can support them, support their teams.
Sounds great. If there was one element or one piece of advice from the book that you could hand back to your younger self, what would it be?
To my younger self, I would say, don't give up. And tough as it's been, and tough as the path is going to be, and as many twists and turns that there are going to be, it's going to become joyful. So in all the challenges, it will become brighter. So I think that's the advice I would have loved to have known way back when.
When you went through the
Yeah.
devastating phases.
Yeah.
It's a cycle, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. And that there will be others. There'll be other people. I won't be the only one. And there'll be hundreds of others, and then eventually thousands of others. So that would have been nice to know at the time.
Where do you find your inspiration? Do you have a book or a podcast or a practice that you have that you use to feed that inspiration?
I think naturally, since I was young, I've been a very imaginative person. And I've had a lot of friends that are artists. And I've realised I'm not so much an artist in the traditional sense of wanting to really express stuff from within myself and be really involved in that. I think I'm much more of a generally creative person, and I've always been very driven to have a purpose to my creativity in order to help others reach their potential and discover life in a new way. So I've always felt there's been a purpose and in a sense a bit more design around what I do rather than artistry. So I think there are some clear differences between those paths. And so I think generally I've always been extremely imaginative, extremely creative. And I think what inspires me is a sense of wanting, I see the world in a really wonderful way because I'm imaginative and creative. And I've realized other people from being a child as they've grown up, because I feel everyone naturally sees the world that way. But I think through time, through age, through circumstances, difficulties, challenges, people grow up and they become serious and they become sensible and they stop seeing the wonder of life. And so what inspires me is my own passion to help bring that back for people, help reduce those barriers and those boundaries and those walls that have built up, and help open their eyes back up, open their hearts back up, open their spirits back up to the wonder of life, to the wonder of themselves. And I've realised everything I've done in my life has been about that, but I've only realised that retrospectively as I've got older, that whether it was clothes or theatre or experience design that I do now, it's actually about just trying to get people to connect back to the wonder of who they are, being a human, the wonder of life, the universe, each other. And everything I do is really to that purpose. And that's what inspires me. So I've realised it's not the means or the format that I do that matters anymore. I've understood for myself what drives it all, and what keeps me inspired and passionate is
so your
that
sense
purpose.
of purpose is what drives you.
My purpose to help open up people's purpose and potential.
We talked earlier about an initial vision of success that was pretty traditional and pre-formatted for you. What does success look like to you now?
It's a very good question. It's something I ask myself a lot as I go forward to make sure I stay on track and not back to that old version. And I think my version of success now is a sense of wholeness. So now, more than ever before, I feel much more connected and whole and at peace with who I am. I'm not trying to be anyone else. I'm not trying to be something else of myself. I feel like every day I am more and more comfortable and connected to who I am and happy with that. And then that gives me a sense of wholeness with my environment, my friends, my loved ones, my colleagues, the work I do. And so I feel like the more I'm centered and whole, the more the rest of my world becomes whole and fulfilling and nurturing and joyful. And so, yeah, and it's a practice. It's a daily practice. It's like, I'm only human. I moan as well. And I can, be disappointed and all the shades of everything in between. But I try and keep that as my through line to keep me get back up, dust myself off and take the next step forward.
So it's a sort of alignment.
Yes. It's an alignment with self and with feeling like being happy with who I am. And I think we spend most of our life not happy with who we are, or feeling like we should be this, we should be that. And I feel like the more that I'm aligned with who I am, the more my life aligns with me to what I want it to be in terms of being nourishing and nurturing. So it's not about the physicality of it all, but more about the emotional sense and grounding that I get from myself and from others in my work. So I really try to turn work into providing me the purpose and the life that I want to live. I'm actually a live experiment in motion. I mean, I say this to my friends since 2020 because I committed to really trying to do it this way. And I said it could go horribly wrong. And there's moments where I felt like it has gone horribly wrong. But I've committed to it and I'm walking that path. And I said, don't do it the way I've done it. I'm doing it the hard way. But this is a live experiment and I'm trying to live by the principles that I spout. I'm actually trying to live by them first, and let's hope it
experience
let's hope
them
it works,
before
yes.
you teach them. It
Yeah.
sounds great. Pigalle, I have one last question. What can we wish for you at this point of your journey?
That's a very kind question. Thank you. I'm always wishing stuff for others, so it's very nice to have a thought about a wish for me. Well, if I just go with the present moment right now, the wish for me that I would wish others to have is, I'm going to make it about them again because I can sort of do that in my nature, but I wish for them to discover my book so that it becomes a guidebook for them and that it empowers them and they feel like they can go and achieve the potential and the purpose and the impact they want to create for others, that it opens all of that up for them. So I guess the wish for me is that the book takes on a life of its own. I'm releasing it now and I really wish for it to go and fly and me to watch what happens.
And empower people.
Yeah.
Sounds great. Thank you so much, Pigalle.
Thank you so much.
I really appreciate you coming here.
I really appreciate your invitation to come here, your wonderful, thoughtful questions. And yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.